Hey everybody, it's Mother's Day. I just got through preaching about the mother who wouldn't back down. I think about my own mother and so many incredible mothers in the village that raised me in this terrible time of turmoil. We need mothers. We need a village that refuses to back down. Watch and be blessed.
2 Samuel chapter 21, beginning with verse 8. Hear now, listen for the word of God. 2 Samuel chapter 21, beginning with verse 8. Now there was a famine in the days of David for 3 years, year after year. And David inquired of the Lord. The Lord said, there is blood guilt on Saul and on his house, because he put the Gibeonites to death. So the king called the Gibeonites and spoke to them. Now the Gibeonites were not of the people of Israel, but of the remnant of the Amorites. Although the people of Israel had sworn to spare them, Saul had tried to wipe them out in his zeal for the people of Israel and Judah. David said to the Gibeonites, what shall I do for you? How shall I make expiation that you may bless the heritage of the Lord? The Gibeonites said to him, it is not a matter of silver or gold between us and Saul or his house. Neither is it for us to put anyone to death in Israel. He said, what do you say that I should do for you? They said to the king, the man who consumed us and planned to destroy us so that we should have no place in all the territory of Israel, let 7 of his sons be handed over to us, and we will impale them before the Lord at Gibeon on the mountain of the Lord. The king said, I will hand them over. But the king spared Mephibosheth, the son of Saul's son Jonathan, because of the oath of the Lord that was between them, between David and Jonathan, son of Saul. The king took the 2 sons of Rizpah, daughter of Aiah, whom she bore to Saul, Armani and Mephibosheth, and the 5 sons of Merabi, daughter of Saul, whom she bore to Adriel, son of Barzillai, the Mohathalite. He gave them into the hands of the Gibeonites, and they impaled them on the mountain before the Lord. The 7 of them perished together. They were put to death in the first days of harvest at the beginning of barley harvest. Then Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, took sackcloth and spread it on a rock for herself. From the beginning of the harvest until rain fell on them from the heavens, she did not allow the birds of the air to come on the bodies by day or the wild animals by night. When David was told what Rizpah, daughter of Aiah, the concubine of Saul, had done, David went and took the bones of Saul and the bones of his son Jonathan from the people of Jabesh Gilead, who had stolen them from the public square of Bethshan, where the Philistines had hung them up on the day the Philistines killed Saul on Gilboa. He brought up from there the bones of Saul and the bones of his son Jonathan, and they gathered the bones of those who had been impaled. They buried the bones of Saul and of his son Jonathan in the land of Benjamin, in Zelah, in the tomb of his father Kish. They did all that the king commanded. After that, God heeded supplications for the land. We shine the sermonic spotlight on that 10th verse. Then Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, took sackcloth and spread it on a rock for herself. From the beginning of harvest until rain fell on them from the heavens. She did not allow the birds of the air to come on the bodies by day, or the wild animals by night. I want to talk to you for just the next little while about the mother who wouldn't back down. The mother who wouldn't back down. Rizpah is one of those obscure characters. And I know that this is one of those obscure stories, a tragic story. But we must look at Rizpah because her awesome faith and her unusual courage too often gets lost in our focus upon the men in the text. Stories of kings and kings' men, the stories of prophets and potentates. Sometimes in the midst of the story, in the midst of history, we need to hear her story. Because Rizpah is a hidden figure. You remember the movie Hidden Figures that told the story of Katherine Johnston and all of the other brilliant black women who worked alongside her, without whose brilliance John Glenn never would have launched into orbit. These women were so brilliant, they were literally called calculators before they were calculators. It's easy to pay attention to the astronaut, but you ought to pay attention to those who allow the spaceship to take off in the first place. It's easy to pay attention to the pilot, but every now and then you ought to thank God for those who paved the runway smooth so that you could take off without incident. And so we lift up high this morning the story of Rizpah, like Amelia Boynton, a hidden figure. Do you know the name Amelia Boynton? I know you know the name of John Lewis, who walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And he used to say in his own way, I gave up a little blood that day. But he wasn't the only one on that bridge. There was a woman named Amelia Boynton whom I was blessed to meet when she was about 100 years old. She came to Ebenezer Church. She was gassed on that bridge. Lots of women lost their lives on that bridge. I know you know Martin Luther King Jr., but there's a way in which even Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't as powerful as Fannie Lou Hamer. At least, let me put it this way. When he spoke, they let him speak. But Fannie Lou Hamer, that bold and brilliant black woman from Mississippi, when she stood up and spoke at the Democratic National Convention, the President of the United States, yes, LBJ, was so frightened of what she would say that he had them to interrupt her in order for him to make an announcement about absolutely nothing, because people get nervous when black women start talking. And then there's Viola Luiso, a white woman who was the wife of a Detroit Teamster Union member. As we fight for our voting rights, don't you forget that Viola Luiso died so that we might have the right to vote. Thank God for these hidden figures. Thank God for these women without whose story our story would have ended a long time ago. I'm drawn to this story about Rizpah. For 3 long years, there had been a famine in the land. And in the early days of David's reign over the kingdom of Israel, following the death of Saul, and like all good politicians, David wanted to make sure that the land experienced prosperity under his watch. But they were in a famine. And when they asked David, how is the economy doing, he was honest about it. He knew they were in a famine. He didn't look at the economy as folk were struggling to pay for their groceries and pay for their health care and pay for their gas. I got to give David credit. At least he didn't say the economy was an A+ plus, plus. He wanted things to go well, and he wanted to hold on to his power. There was an affordability crisis, famine in the land, and so he inquired of the Lord regarding the source of their suffering and the purpose behind their pain and the meaning of their misery. And the answer came back unequivocal and clear. The Lord said, there is blood guilt on Saul and his house. You're the king now, but you have inherited trouble that you didn't create. Sometimes we live in trouble that is not of our creation. Some trouble we bring on ourselves. Some trouble we inherit. So there's blood guilt. God says on Saul and his house, the Gibeonites, those whom Joshua and your ancestors had pledged to spare in the land of promise, were utterly destroyed by Saul. In his zeal and in his ambition for empire building, he tried to wipe them off of the face of the earth. He sent out a tweet saying a whole civilization will die. There is blood guilt on your predecessor, and the whole kingdom is suffering because of it. And so David asked the Gibeonites, how do we make amends? How do we correct this? How do we make you whole? What can I do for you in order to make recompense for this evil visited upon your people? And they answer, it is not a matter of silver or gold. Let 7 of Saul's sons be handed over to us, and we will impale them, destroy them, tear them to pieces on the mountain of the Lord. It's amazing to see the things that people will do in the name of the Lord. Bomb people in the name of the Lord. Pillage and oppress folk in the name of the Lord. And David hands them over to be killed on the mountain of the Lord. Now, before you dismiss this story as yet another example of the bloodthirsty God, some would say, of the Old Testament, a God who demands revenge and encourages ruthlessness, a God too bloody and brutish for the sophisticated moral sensibilities of postmodern men and women. Before dismissing this Old Testament text, we would do well to remember that it is the Gibeonites and not God who demand the death of Saul's sons. God did not demand the death of Saul's sons. People will do all kinds of evil and say God told them to do it. Frederick Douglass said that of all the slave masters he ever had, he said that the Christian slave masters were the worst. Because the only thing worse than evil is evil done with religious zeal. God didn't tell David to kill Saul's sons. He asked God to explain the problem. God said the problem was blood guilt. But then look at the text. He turned away from God to ask the Gibeonites rather than God for the answer that he asked God to explain in the first place. Why ask God for the diagnosis and ask mere mortals for the cure? You ought to hang out long enough to hear what God is really saying to you, because if you hang out for just a little while, you can convince yourself that your own whisper is the voice of God. And can I tell you as a pastor, there's nothing more dangerous than when saints say, God told me to do it. Blood guilt is a dangerous thing. Blood guilt with a religious veneer is deadly and destruction. It sends nations into endless wars. Think the Crusades. Sends us into terrible social policy, where you're too busy trying to control and contain the people rather than confront the oppression that created these conditions in the first place. If you are burdened with blood guilt, and you don't want to deal with the ugliness of your own past, you just find hidden ways to deal with the guilt that lives inside of you. And instead of dealing with the legacy of racism and the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow segregation, you'd rather lock people up than liberate them. It's a dangerous thing. Let me see if I can make it plain. When you are burdened with blood guilt and a distorted view of life based on what others have told you rather than the God of love and justice, you will come up with public policy in such a way that you have money for ICE and money for prison, but none for daycare and none for health care. David asked the wrong people for advice. They asked for Saul's family. And because there had been no love lost between him and Saul, he was happy to oblige. It is a ritual killing, but his actions have more to do with political opportunism than religious piety. 5 of Saul's grandsons and 2 sons whom he sired through Rizpah were handed over and killed. Done in the name of religious piety. But it was really animated by political opportunism. Be weary of those who commit evil while quoting scripture. Be careful of those who like to walk around and read from the book of Pulp Fiction. The gospel according to St. Samuel L. Jackson. While creating all kinds of horror all over the world in the name of a faith that you clearly don't even know and a God whom you don't know. Through this tragic story, we get an extraordinary look into the meaning of motherhood. For the Bible says that Rizpah takes some sackcloth and the garment of mourning, and she pitches a tent on a rock for herself, and she stays on the mountain for 6 months. All by herself. Her sons are already dead. They have been killed, but she could not save them in life, but she wants them to have some dignity in death. And for 6 months, she beats back the vultures and holds the wild beasts at bay day and night. For 6 long months, she held vigil for her children. There is no pain worse than when nature is reversed. And rather than the children burying the parent, the mother, has to bury the child. There are mothers here. I'm looking at some faces here. There are mothers here in this sanctuary today for whom this is a bittersweet day because they love their children in the grave. And if there are any mothers that you ought to pray for, you ought to pray for those who've had to bury their own children. She held vigil. She insisted that they have the dignity of a decent burial rather than their bones scattered over the mountain. She looked up and there were vultures flying all around. And vultures look for roadkill. They look for stuff that's already dead or almost dead. Sometimes it ain't dead, it's just dying, and the vulture wants to swoop down and get something that's already vulnerable, that already appears to be dying. And as I look around at the atmosphere of this moment, there are vultures who are flying all around. They have virtually killed the Voting Rights Act, and now the vultures are flying around in Tennessee and Alabama and Mississippi and in Georgia and in Virginia, trying to swoop down and take the power. But you ought to hold vigil. The Bible says that she held vigil for 6 months. She held vigil from the barley harvest until the rain began to fall. She held vigil for 6 months. Let's see, if she started in May, she held vigil for 6 months. That's June, July, August, September, October, November. Yes, hold vigil between now and November, because there's some vultures who are trying to swoop down and take your power, but you ought to hold them at bay. You ought to have the vigilance of Rizpah. You ought to say to those that are trying to swoop down, you will not have our power. You will not have our voice. You will not have our vote. You will not have our confidence. We are here and we are here to stay, and we're not going anywhere. And in your own personal lives, beneath the noise of politics, in those more intimate spaces of our workaday lives, there are those who want to have their way with our children. And if there's anything we ought to do on Mother's Day, we ought to recommit ourselves to making sure that our children are okay. Not just my children, not just your children, all of our children are okay. So I just rise this morning and thank God, first of all, for Rizpah's passion. Her passion. She loved her children. She loved them with a passion that defied death, a passion that drives her to hold vigil for them day and night. The rest of the world had moved on. The news media had buried the story on the back page. Isn't it interesting that sometimes there's a news story and it's at the center of everybody's attention? But she would not let it go. She held vigil for them in a world too cold to care. A world where human beings become hashtags. But then everybody forgets. But after everybody forgets, the mother of Tamir Rice is still dealing with that pain. The mother of Trayvon Martin, all of these years later, the mother of Sandra Blonde, they're all still dealing with the pain when human beings become hashtags, and then hashtags go viral, and then the world moves on to the next story. But in her passion, she held on. My beloved, we must never become accustomed or adjusted to the death of our own children, or the death of children all over the world. It is Rizpah who reminds us that there is something fundamentally wrong with this picture, and God give us her passion. Come next and see that we need God to give us her persistence. It's one thing to hang out on a mountain with 7 dead bodies for a whole day. Can you imagine? 7 dead bodies and her on that mountain all by themselves. That would be a whole lot to do it for a day. That alone is more than most of us could stand. A week would inspire wonder. A month would be amazing. But Rizpah stays there for 6 months, from the barley harvest until God sent rain from heaven. We learn from her that a mother's love is not only passionate, it's persistent. It will not take no foreign answer. A good mama will get in your face until you deliver what she needs for her child. A good mother doesn't just send their children to school. They go to the school and they get to know the teacher, and they get to know the guidance counselor, and they get to know the principal, and they show up at the school so much that people think they're a teacher at the school. No, that's just my mama. Because she knows that there are vultures that would pluck the eyes and pick the flesh of the dead or the near dead and the presumed dead. And if you don't show up for your children, if you don't show up for your little black boy and your little black girl and your little brown boy and your little brown girl, or that baby with special needs, or that child who is brilliant but won't keep still, you better not try to outsource your parenting to other people. The only person who can be the mama is the mama. I'm not going to turn my kids over to anybody. Oh, those are my children. We live in a world that would make of our children roadkill. Profitable products warehoused in prisons, or expendable byproducts washed away in the streets. We need some mamas and some daddies with the persistence of Rizpah. And they don't have to be a mother by blood, but they need to be persistent enough to fend off the vultures before the vultures finish off our children. The data shows that black and brown children don't get a chance to be children. They are perceived as adults. One of the most dangerous things you can be is a tall black boy. Mama, you better protect your son, protect your daughter from the vultures. Low academic expectation is a vulture that stunts the growth of a brilliant young mind that cannot yet know its own potential. Negative insults hurled by frustrated parents are vultures that eat away the child's self-esteem and self-worth. You may not like his daddy, but don't you dare tell that child he's just like his no-good daddy. Don't you say that. You just like your mama. Don't you say that. That's your baggage. Don't burden the child with your baggage. Some of our video music culture is a vulture. I love hip hop. I love pop culture. But we have to be careful what we are teaching our children. Too often our music and our video culture has become a vulture that teaches our young women to use their hips rather than their heads. Young woman, it's good to be pretty, but pretty will fade. If you really want to stop the room, show up pretty and brilliant and capable and in charge. Now that's sexy. Be persistent. You remember that day, AOC, a woman took the floor, and the senator from Kentucky said she was warned. Who was that speaking that day? It was Elizabeth. My friend Elizabeth Warren, remember she was standing on the floor? And the senator from Kentucky said she was warned. We told her to be quiet. Nevertheless, she persisted. He thought it was a condemnation. He didn't know it was a medal of honor. Nevertheless, she persisted. They told her to be quiet. Nevertheless, she persisted. They said it's a man's world. Nevertheless, she persisted. She didn't have all the resources she would have wanted to have. Nevertheless, she persisted. Is there anybody here who's got a memory of a mother or a grandmother or a big mama who kept on keeping on, and you wouldn't be where you are if it were not for her? Nevertheless, she persisted. You ought to keep pressing in Jesus' name and know that greater is the one who is within you than the one who is within the world. Thank God for her passion. Thank God for her persistence. Thank God for her sense of purpose. Why did Rizpah continue? She continued because she understood that these were not just dead bodies on a mountaintop. These were not just cadavers. These were human beings. Matter of fact, as it turns out, these were the sons of Saul. In other words, even though they had been dismissed and destroyed and impaled on the mountain, beneath all of what had gone on and all that had transpired, in spite of all that had happened to them, they weren't just cadavers. They weren't just bodies. They were human beings. And not only were they human beings, they were sons of a king. Impaled on a mountain, beaten down and bludgeoned, but they were still sons of a king. Let me see if I can make it plain for you. When I was a little boy, I used to play checkers with my brothers. And because they were bigger and more sophisticated, they'd be whipping my socks off. But one day, almost all of my men were gone, but one day one of them messed up and let me get one man, just one man, on the other side of the board. And I discovered when I was a little kid, if you could just get your man on the other side of the board, they'll take another man and put him on top of your man, and that man becomes a king. And a king doesn't move like an ordinary person. A king can move all the way across the board, from one end to the next. And my brother would move. He said, "What you gonna do?" I said, "I'm gonna go all the way to the other side." I was just buying my time till I figured it out. He said, "What you gonna do?" "I'm gonna move back to the other side." I discovered that if you have a king in your corner, you can make it through the game. I'm trying to tell somebody who's been beaten down that there's a king in you. Discriminated against, but there's a king in you. You've been dismissed by the world, but there's a king in you. I'm more than the eyes can see. There is a God who lives inside of me. There's a king in me. When you know there's a king in you, you have a sense of purpose. Come finally and see that we admire her power. On the surface, she seems powerless, but she shows us that we have power. We have more power than we think. Keep on holding vigil. Keep on letting your light shine. And you'll discover that you have enough power to move powers and those who are in power. She had enough power to move David and force David to do the right thing, not only for her son, but for Jonathan, his own friend. Because of her power, she moved David and embarrassed him into doing the right thing. But not only did she move David, the Bible tells us that she moved God. And because of her and not David, God sent the rain. God didn't answer David's prayer, but God answered the prayer of a mother who was holding vigil for 6 long months on top of a mountaintop. David had asked God and then ignored God because he was too caught up in the power games that people play. It is Rizpah who breaks the cycle of violence and vengeance and death. It is Rizpah who points to the way that is a more excellent way. It is Rizpah who brings David around to doing the right thing. And it is Rizpah who causes the rain to fall by the strength and the power of her prayers. I know we're going through a drought season, but you ought to keep on holding vigil. Hold vigil for our children, and hold vigil for goodness, and hold vigil for kindness, and hold vigil for mercy until the rains. Began to fall. She was faithful in the face of death. She waged a war on a hill for their humanity. Out there 6 months on a lonely hill, waging war for their humanity. I'm done. But because I'm a Baptist preacher, I have to tell you that she reminds me of somebody else who waged for us a war on a hill all by himself. They impaled him on a hill called Calvary. They hung him high and they stretched him wide. They put him on the cross. The chastisement of our peace was upon him. We were the ones in sin, but he became sin so that we might become the righteousness of God. And he held vigil on the cross. And there were moments when he grew tired. I hear him say, "Father, Father, why hast thou forsaken me?" He could have come down from the cross. He could have called 10,000 angels, but he stood right there on that cross, waging war for our humanity, saying that they are my children, and I'm going to have to stay here as long as it takes until I save my children. He beat back death, hell, and the grave. He died so that we might live. I got to get out of here, but I want to thank God for my mama. She's 88 years old, lives in Savannah, Georgia. Ain't nobody like my mama. Can't nobody love me like my mama. I'll always love my mama because she's my favorite girl. Thank God for mama. But the reason why my mama has been such a great mama is because she met a man named Jesus. And when I was a little boy, she told me that you've got to know the Lord all by yourself. She told me about a God who will rock you in the midnight hour. She told me about a God who will be with you when friends turn their back on you. She told me about a God who will hold you in a weary land. She told me about a God who provides water when you're thirsty. She told me about a God who will guide your feet when you're confused and you don't know what to do next. She told me about a God who said when you're tired, you can come unto him. Ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Thank God for mama. Because of mama, I was born. But because of Jesus, I was born again. Mama held my hand Jesus held me in the palm of his hand. Mama fed me. Jesus freed me. Mama raised me. Jesus raised me up and redeemed me. Mama gave me my life. Jesus died so that I might have life, and that more abundantly. Mama taught me how to walk. Jesus walks with me and talks with me and tells me that I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. I want to thank God for a mama who introduced me to the one who said that God, Jesus said that God is like a mother hen. See, preachers don't lift up that image enough. Who surrounds her baby chicks, covers them under the feather of her wings. That's what God is like. And as we open wide the doors of the church, I want to invite somebody to give their life over to that God through Christ, to say yes to the one who is our help, say yes to the one who is our hope, say yes to the God who loves us with a perfect love. The doors of the church are open.